Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to NASEP Webbytes. Today's Webbyte, we will be heading to the University of Rhode Island and taking a new spin on our broadcast by making this more of a virtual discussion. We hope that you will enjoy this short but informative broadcast. This broadcast will be recorded so we can provide access to the Webbyte on our website. NASEP members will be able to find it in our CRM, which you can access by going to www.nasep.org, clicking on the blue login button, entering in your email and/or set username and password, and then click on Past Webinars. If you'd like to pose a question during this Webbyte, we highly encourage you to. You may do so at any time by typing it into the questions box, which is located near the bottom of your webinar dashboard. I will be on the other end of that questions box. We'll be helping to facilitate those questions, but we also are pushing for live discussion. So you can also interact via live audio by unmuting yourself. In just a second, I'm going to be unmuting everybody. I will ask that you mute yourself just because of feedback, and then when you want to participate, unmute your little microphone. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us. I'm Jenny Pattison, NASEP's Director of Accreditation and Member Services, and I would like to welcome our facilitator presenter of the afternoon, Frank Romanelli. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank to introduce himself and get us started.
Thank you, Jenny. Hi, everybody. I'm Frank Romanelli from the University of Writing and Rhetoric, and I am the coordinator for a robust program in Writing and Rhetoric. We have over 32 sections of Writing 104 being taught in high schools around Rhode Island, and my role is to coordinate that group of concurrent enrollment faculty members to visit the classes, to do advising with the students, and to do professional development with the teachers, coordinate with the department for curriculum to make sure that our classes in the high schools that are being taught as concurrent enrollment classes are the same classes that we're teaching on campus. And I'm in my 4th year in the role. I'm excited to see that one of my per-class instructors is with us today, Denise, who joined us when we had the start of this conversation on October 9th in Washington, D.C. at the NASEP conference. So I'm excited to continue the conversation today. And my goal has really been just to allow the conversation to happen, to get people's perspectives, different perspectives on the many opportunities and the different forms the opportunities take for college-level work in a pre-college environment. Jenny, if you could advance to the next slide. So we looked at the 4 different models that we could consider that are common to high schools right now. One is the concurrent enrollment model that we're involved with through our association with NASEP. Other models, dual enrollment models like middle colleges, early colleges, gateway to college program. Then there are the credit-based programs that are run with exams with potential college credit, like the advanced placement program is probably the most popular one, and the International Baccalaureate, which is only run in one high school that I know of here in Rhode Island, but is a series of coursework and exams that fulfill a whole different perspective in early credit. Some of the information that we got when we had the conversation in October that I thought was really interesting as we looked at each one, not so much to compare them in terms of any one being better than another, but just seeing what each offered, how they interact with each other, in some places parallel, in some places overlapping, and to see what the benefits and questions are about the different models. We'll start with the next slide, taking a look at what the definition of advanced placement is, just so that everyone has a clear idea of what we're talking about. Advanced placement is a program that's sponsored by the College Board. I know there's someone from the College Board here today. I'm excited to see that. And the College Board program, which has been in place for as long as I've known, is an opportunity for students to take rigorous college-level work in a high school class in which they take an exam at the end of to see if they meet a certain goal, a recommendation that in some cases, in many cases, colleges will then accept that credit toward coursework at the college level, whichever college they enter. The next one is the International Baccalaureate, which I mentioned. again, over 1 million opportunities with in many different countries. So that's a whole different perspective. And then the one that NASEP is most involved with, the next slide, dual and concurrent enrollment. The difference being, by definition, that concurrent enrollment is a college class that happens in the context of the high school classroom. Dual enrollment is a class that actually happens on campus, where the student actually takes the regular college class and gets both high school and college credit for it. So we offer both of those at the University of Rhode Island. Like many states around the country, our state has recently, in the past 3 years, offered to fund students who want to take early college, concurrent, and dual enrollment classes. So as a result, my population in the writing program at the University of Rhode Island has increased by 40%. I now have over 1,000 students a year taking Writing 104. And that's just one of the offerings that we have at URI. We have a number of other offerings as well. But that's the only one that has the large number of teachers and students, because it's been going on since the mid-70s. So it's a pretty long-standing program in Rhode Island. So that being said, I'd like to just share with you, and if we go to the next slide, just to let you know, there we are, some of the references that I have found. And the most interesting one is the one on the top of the list, because that actually, when I found that one, it really gave me a different perspective. There are perspectives and arguments about which students benefits most from, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each program. That particular program one grabbed my attention because it kind of fed my interests in that in 2015, Zint published that while, I want to get the exact quote for you, AP students who obtained at least one score of 3 or higher on the AP exam considerably outperformed on all examined outcomes, except for four-year college enrollment, which was highest for students who had taken a dual enrollment course affiliated with a four-year college. So what that said to me is that obviously there are strengths in both programs for different students with different interests and different roads that they're going to choose for higher education. So, and that took me to some of the notes that I had from our discussion in October, and that is available. I don't know if any of you got to watch the video of that, but one of the things that came up in that discussion, as I looked at each of the models, here are some of the points that I had. So, starting with the word rigor came up, and the word rigor came up in a couple of different ways. Denise had attended that online, and she had shared with us that she spoke with a representative from Harvard University, and she also spoke with someone from one of the popular news outlets. I think it might have been U.S. News, but I'm not sure. Denise, you can remind us at some point. But and the idea of rigor kind of got broken down to two things. Harvard said any course that offers students early college challenges is of interest to them, while they may or may not accept the credits, and they said they generally don't accept credits for any of the coursework. They do appreciate seeing the coursework has been accomplished on the student's application, that they tend to want to give those students preference because they've taken on that challenge. So that was one place in which rigor was defined. Another place that rigor is defined, however, is more statistically, in terms of things like quality points and GPAs. And that's a mixed bag, because some schools and some evaluation agencies will look at some programs in terms of those numbers and not at other programs. And that's kind of a mixed bag that's evolving as we move forward with all of these programs. Obviously, with dual and concurrent enrollment, there's a head start to knowledge. There's affordable or free college credits that in its, and we made this point, I made this point in October, I want to make it again. I'm assuming in this discussion that I'm talking about all of these programs being taught in the way that they were designed to be taught. So in the best possible case, not to get to any slippery slopes about whether or not teachers or students are doing what they're supposed to be doing or any of that, because that's not really what the discussion is. But the way the courses are designed, we look at the dual and concurrent enrollment courses as real college classes. And one of the things that got said in the discussion that I had not considered until I heard it was the non-cognitive value of a dual concurrent enrollment class, in that students learning to manipulate the college system, like the enrollment system. And one of the people involved in the discussion in Washington actually shared that her students were then able to share their knowledge of the system with their freshman peers when they got to college, and that was an advantage, that they already had a one-up on that. I mentioned the Harvard response. One teacher shared that in her school, that because of actually it was one of my teachers, Denise, because of my oversight, that there was more teacher accountability for the concurrent enrollment class to make sure that they were following our syllabus and working toward our outcomes. On the other hand, there's more academic freedom in the concurrent and dual enrollment side because of the nature of the way college classes are taught, expecting the expertise of the teachers to drive the teacher's style toward the outcomes. And then the last point under dual and concurrent enrollment was the 85% acceptance rate, according to the UConn study. And it was said at that time by a representative from UConn that the rate is actually, outside of the statistics, maybe a little higher than that, but especially for students who can advocate for themselves. Sometimes will get themselves credit at colleges or universities that otherwise would not give credit. I did provide a site for you that the link is on the last slide, with some essential questions to consider as you're thinking about how this conversation applies to you. And if you go to that link, you'll find some of my notes, and you'll also find a link to that UConn database. So as far as AP, as a college level class, that's not a college level content, that's not necessarily a designated college level class. So it's up to different colleges and universities to decide how they accept those credits, whether they accept them as elective credits, whether they assign them to a course that's taught at that university or college. One advantage of an AP class, and this is something that didn't come up in the conversation, but has come up in my knowledge of understanding dual and concurrent enrollment, and some of the implications that they have around the federal financial aid laws. And this is from when I actually ran a dual enrollment program at a community college, a gateway-like program before I came to URI, is that if a student fails a dual or concurrent enrollment class, that actually is considered in their financial aid package as they move forward. So, and under federal financial aid guidelines, a student can only fail a class twice and retake it with financial assistance. After that, they're on their own with the course if they have to take it a third time. So that's an important thing to consider. Whereas an AP level class, it's up to the student to bring the credit to the college. So if they don't do well on the test at the outcome, they don't have that risk to deal with the financial aid issues. Also, colleges are rated by the media based on AP, much more than on dual and concurrent enrollment. So in that way, again, going back to that definition of rigor, it's to a student's advantage to be involved in an AP level class. A third thing is that AP level classes are year-long, so it gives a student more opportunity to learn at that higher level, a longer period of time, as opposed to a semester class that following the college model that a concurrent enrollment class would be. And then one of the downsides of the AP class, like with the downside of the dual and concurrent enrollment class being that risk toward financial aid, one of the downsides for the AP class is that there is no guarantee for credit based on different colleges and different programs and different departments. And my department has had a mixed relationship with that issue over the years. Policies have changed around that. So those are the different models. And then there are some ways, I was at a high school today in which I visited 3 classes that were mixed. The students in the classes were AP students who were taking the concurrent enrollment writing class as part part of their AP program that they were in for the year. So I've been in other schools where the populations are separate and parallel. One person actually shared in the conversation in DC that in their district, they actually had two separate high schools, one being the concurrent enrollment high school and the other being the AP high school. And that person also shared that in their district, they strive to find teachers who believe in both so that they they put the same passion toward their teaching in both. So those are all my notes and those are all my comments. I just wanted to put that all out there up front and then give you the opportunity to contribute to the conversation in any way that you'd like and see what we have to offer each other today. So I'll breathe now.
Thanks, Frank. And just as a reminder, for those of you that joined us during his presentation, you automatically go into mute. So feel free to either use the chat box or the question box or raise your hand for me to unmute you. And then at that point, you'll be able to mute or unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Well, Frank, I have a question for you while folks are taking this all in. At the discussion in DC, for those that weren't there, did false perceptions come up a lot in the conversation as far as how folks, view the different entities and modalities and what's happening?
There were, I think the perceptions were based on personal observations, and there were a couple of slippery slopes that kind of went both directions. On the concurrent enrollment side, there were people who felt that the concurrent enrollment didn't have the rigor that it needed to have because the programs weren't being overseen. In some cases, the teachers didn't have the qualifications. Now, again, to me, that's a slippery slope because I'm assuming that all the NASEP standards are being met. And in Rhode Island, we have the NEASC, New England Association of Schools and Colleges, that follow the NASEP standards. So we're required by accreditation, both in our high schools and our colleges, to make sure that we're following those. So that was one. On the other side was the AP classes, that there were some local perceptions that AP classes were not of the rigor that they were claiming to be, and that students were not, that success on an AP test was not transferring to cognitively to their ability to be successful in a college class. So those were the perceptions, neither of which I believed were true, but maybe in isolated cases, but not overall. I think they do create stereotypes. And then the other perception is that more and more colleges and universities are not accepting concurrent enrollment credits. But then the UConn database clearly disagrees with that, and that database is updated every year. So those are some of the perceptions that I saw and heard as we talked.
And Denise had a comment, so she's been unmuted.
All right.
Well, oh, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. I had just typed in, it was U.S. News and World Report, Frank, that you were referencing, and they rated high schools on the number of AP courses that were offered as opposed to the number of AP courses that kids took the exam and passed with a 3 or higher. It was simply about having a lot of the AP courses. So I did write to them, as I told you, and I asked them to actually consider ranking high schools on not just that, but concurrent enrollment, dual credit. So didn't hear back from them, though.
Right.
This was a good overview of what you of the Washington conference. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I'm just out of curiosity, for those of the attendees that are listening, how many of you all are running or are familiar with within the K-12 programs that you're working with that are offering both IB or AP, and are any of them intermixing? Are they doing AP and like AP Bio together with your college bio, and how is that going? And since I know we do have a College Board person on here, does the College Board, just out of curiosity, keep track of that? Because I know that usually institutions do, but I didn't know if they were also seeing, is it meshing well, do they think, on their end?
Do we type that in?
You're still unmuted, Denise, if you want to keep chatting.
Oh, I'm still in. Okay. My school, I can only speak for my school. We do not have any mixtures going on at all. Never the two shall meet at this point, so I have not heard of that.
But then I was at North Providence High School today where all three of the sections that I met were all mix of AP and college writing.
Interesting. And it's working well. So, having taught the AP Lang and Comp course, I wonder how that works in terms of teaching to an exam, because there is a certain amount of strategy you do have to teach, certain number of strategies you do have to teach, generally speaking, for an AP exam, how to attack the multiple choice and stuff, and that doesn't connect to our course at all, the writing course. So I just need to know how those two play together.
I think the way, in your case, I know that because you keep them separate, you're doing our English department's literature class for your other semester.
Yep.
I'm guessing that in North Providence, the two instructors there are using that other semester.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Literature piece.
So, okay.
We've actually had some lively conversation come in, and so I'm going to unmute some of these folks. Alice, you're unmuted, and Victoria, I'm unmuting you to share your insight. It looks like they both muted themselves, so I'll share their insight. Victoria said that they have schools doing AP U.S. history because their instructors cannot meet the institution's credential requirements, but she does have some schools that are trying to do both AP and concurrent enrollment for the same course and tend to find it difficult. AP Bio has been the easiest to combine with concurrent enrollment for their programs. Alice does not have an audio connection yet, and she wanted to share that this year, our program required our schools to split AP and dual enrollment. There was a little kickback, but not much, and our teachers were grateful for it, I guess, for not having to follow kind of two different curriculums.
I think it's interesting to me. I'm curious to see, and again, I'm looking at the secondary research, seeing different findings from different places. So I'm interested in doing some primary research in my own institution to see. I really want to look at schools like Denise's, like at Westerly High School in Rhode Island, where the students are not the same students. And I want to look at their GPAs to get some sense of their college success at the end of freshman year, at the end of sophomore year, et cetera, and see if I can discern any data of value that's valid, to see how students are meeting success if they take AP, concurrent enrollment, or neither, and then at some point look at students who are doing both.
I do receive an enormous amount of feedback from students of how grateful they were to be able to take it in college and how well prepared they are to write in all of their courses. So I wish we could figure out a way to, I don't know, advertise those voices more.
And one of the other non-cog benefits that has come up with the students that I meet when I do the advising sessions is that they already have the course kind of in their arsenal when they get to school, as opposed to my first semester or second semester students who are just taking the course for the first time after they've already been assigned college writing in their other classes. That's a huge factor in considering our program for the writing, at least.
I just want to remind folks we have about 6 more minutes because we are keeping this short just because it is, for some folks, late in the day. But Frank has offered to continue the conversation via his website, and if there's enough demand, we could do another one of these in the spring for folks that want to keep talking about it.
Also, if you haven't watched the video yet, I encourage you to. It was a pretty robust discussion. It went pretty well for an hour. Some of you may have been there, actually. I see Mary Ann here from Rhode Island College, our sister organization, brother organization, whatever, our co-Rhode Island organization, that offers also a long-standing early enrollment program to students around the state of Rhode Island that's been very successful. And in some cases, I know students at URI who come in with credits for both programs. They have as many as 11 credits walking through the door, so that's almost a full semester of work, the two institutions combined. So that's been a great boon for us and our students in Rhode Island. Does anyone have any different perspectives maybe that I didn't touch on that you'd like to add to the discussion?
I think it's interesting the non-cognitive values that you pointed out, Frank. We often, let me say, I guess I focus so much on the skill building that's tangible, but those other skills are very valuable as well. And pacing, teaching them how to pace. We don't realize we're doing that, but we're doing that for them. And in the reflection piece, and the creating a web page piece, and those are all skills that when we think of a writing course we don't think of maybe, but they will certainly transfer over to the college scene.
We had a question come in. What do you think the best way to overcome perceptions such as transferability and rigor are? What type of communication can we do as a whole to change those perceptions?
I think the transferability answer is probably in the data. I think sharing that database, which again I put on the Etherpad at that link that you see in front of you, is real helpful to show people that. And also, you know, that what I tell all my students too is that, and we've had this experience time and time again, and Denise mentioned it when we had the DC meeting, is the idea that a student that advocates for themselves with a good portfolio and a good syllabus is going to get the credit, even from a school that says they don't give the credit. And now, we're always talking from the writing perspective when we're talking, when Denise and I are talking, because you know, because that's what we teach and that's what I coordinate. And writing is probably the easiest to look at the metacognitive value as well, because that's the nature of teaching writing, is you get to see the metacognitive result of the work. But I think in the other courses too that I think the easiest sell is to be able to show them the syllabus and to be able to show them that this is a real college class, the textbooks, etc. The work that the students do. Did that hit on everything in that question?
It did. She said yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys. Well, because of time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for coming today. We hope to see you at some of our other upcoming events. As a reminder, this broadcast and all of our broadcasts are always available for members of the new CRM. Lastly, if you have a question that you weren't able to get to, or you're thinking of something later as you're processing the information that Frank presented, please feel free to reach out to us at information@nasep.org. I'd like to give a huge thanks again to Frank for leading this new effort. It was exciting to try a new style. We like it. And please also, we'll be sending out a survey for you all to give us feedback on it. Thank you again for attending. And for those of you that participated, we enjoyed hearing from you. Denise, thanks for giving us your perspective. And Alice and Victoria. Again, thanks everybody, and I hope you guys have a great day.